But it can change your walk. I was pondering this thing, and I opened up the Bible, and it just happened to open up to Nehemiah 8, which says where Nehemiah is, they're dedicating, beginning the temple, and some people are weeping because they're remembering the other temple, the temple of Solomon, the great temple. And Nehemiah says, this is not right, what you're doing. It says, this day is holy, so don't be miserable. It's, in other words, it's holy, so there's got to be joy. And he said, that's when he says to them, you know, the joy of the Lord is your strength. In Hebrew, the word is ma'az or me'az. That means also means defense. So it means the joy of the Lord in your life is a defense for you. It's a defense against the enemy. It's a defense against sin. The joy of the Lord it also means in Hebrew, rock. Ma'uz comes from rock. It's your rock. You become solid when you're in the joy of the Lord. It also means it's your power. It's the power to do what you cannot do without the joy of the Lord. And it also means it's your prevailing. In other words, it's what makes you win. Win. So it's not just an emotion, it's your strength. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And it's the result, not only the result of godliness, but here it's saying something else. It is a power to accomplish things by which the joy is something by which you will do things. You'll move things that you could not move. You will have victories that you could not have. You will have breakthroughs that you could not have. It is the power to do and to know victory. It's the power to accomplish by which it's the power to keep going when you don't feel like keep going, when you don't feel like it. It's the power of having breakthrough in your life, the joy of the Lord. Blessed are the people, it says in the scripture, who know the joyful sounds. Shouts of joy are in the tents of the righteous. They fill the tents of the righteous. So the first thing to get through our hearts is that, there's a difference between two peoples, a joyful people or person and a depressed person. Which person, someone who's miserable, someone who's joyous, which one in the Lord do you think is going to be more victorious? Which is more likely to fail? Which is more likely to give up? Which is more likely to keep going? Which one? Very clearly the joyful one. Look at people in the Lord that you know. Who are the most victorious? The joyful ones. The joyful or the miserable? Look at the believers you know. And which ones, the ones who are the most miserable, tend to have the least victory. And look at those who are most victorious. Overwhelmingly, they are the ones who know the joyful sound. And you might say, well, those who don't have victory are not going to be happy about not having victory. That is true, but the opposite is true. And that is that those who are not joyous in God are not going to have victory. That's the way it is. Because the scripture doesn't say the strong in the Lord have the joy of the Lord. It doesn't say that. It says the joy of the Lord will be your strength. In other words, it's not about I'm strong, so therefore, because I have, it is that the joy, I have the joy first, and then that leads to victory. So you've got $1 million secret here, more than that can change your walk. I want to show you how joy is linked to this. Joy is a power of God as well as the fruit of God. It is a power. Joy is the testimony of your witness that you're saved. The first thing, when you hear good news, what's your reaction? Good news, the reaction of good news has to be joy, or you're not getting the good news. So you might say, that I need to have good news to have joy. Well, the good news is you don't need any more good news than you have. You already have good news. The good news is called the gospel. That just means the good news. So what is the evidence that you've heard good news, your heart has heard, is you have joy. If you've just heard it, you've heard it in your mind, you might have joy in your mind, not in your heart. You hear it in your heart, you got joy in your heart. You hear it in your emotions, you have joy in your emotions. The joy of the believer is the witness of the resurrection of God. And the more you have, the more a witness it is. If someone tells you about a get-rich-quick plan, that they're begging for money, you don't believe them. It's about them getting rich. They're going to get rich by you thinking you're going to get rich. You're going to send them money. If I had somebody preach to me about prosperity, about never, and I did. Actually, somebody preached to me and said, never get sick. That never doesn't happen. It just never. The person was sneezing, nose running, eyes watering, and talking to me about never getting sick. I said, but you're sick. They said, no, I'm not. I said, and what's the runny nose? They said, it's symptoms. Symptoms of what? Nothing. Nothing. If a believer is telling you about salvation and being saved from hell and going to heaven and they're not joyous about it, you're not going to believe them. And people are not going to believe you and come to the Lord if you don't have that. I mean, by God's grace, they can look past you, but it's going to be a stumbling. If somebody's telling you about a money plan and they're rich, or a health plan and they're healthy, you're going to listen to them. And the more joy you have, the more power you have in witnessing the gospel. And in fact, even when you're not overtly witnessing, you're going to be witnessing. People are going to say, I want that. The power, the joy of the Lord is also the power of love. In other words, it's not just one, it's the power in all areas. For instance, let me show you how it applies to that. The love of God produces joy, but joy also produces love. Example, if you're miserable, are you going to be very loving? The more unhappy you are, frustrated, are you going to be more likely to be loving and caring, or frustrated, ready to explode? Why? Unhappiness about something in your life is a form of pain. And when you're in pain, what's happening is you're going to be concerned about yourself. If you're hurting physically, the body's saying you got to be concerned about something. So if you're in pain all the time, what it's saying, I'm not talking about physical pain, I'm talking about the being miserable. What you're not going to be caring so much about other people. You're going to be wrapped up in your thing. And when you relate to, people who are always down about this and this, they're generally not loving other people. Why? Because if you see yourself as a victim all the time, you're dwelling on your body, you're not going to have something to give to somebody else. You're not going to be free of yourself to be able to love someone else. That's a problem. If you're always dwelling on your need, that's the degree that you're not going to be loving. And what's that? That's where joy is crucial. The more joy you have,